"Baba, please, you cannot do this. I cannot marry Chief Zambezi." "And why not, Rudo? Do you not see these riches? Do you not understand the honor this brings to our family? You should be proud that such a powerful man desires you. You are blinded by childish dreams, Rudo. Love does not fill empty stomachs. Love does not build houses. A woman's duty is to secure her family's future. But I do not love him, Baba. I do not even know him. And the villagers, they whisper things. I am afraid. Something is wrong. I can feel it in my bones. Please, Baba, if you ever loved me, do not send me away." Before we begin, please tell us where you are watching from. Subscribe and like our channel. The sun beat down on the dusty village of Mabwe, baking the orange earth until it cracked like parched lips. In the heart of the village, nestled amongst the thatched huts and sprawling baobab trees, lived Rudo, a girl whose beauty was a legend whispered on the wind. Her skin was the color of rich earth after a rain. Her eyes held the warmth of a setting sun, and her laughter was like the melody of a hidden stream. Rudo's parents, old and weathered by years of toil, were fiercely proud of their daughter's allure. They saw it not as a gift to be cherished, but as a commodity, a golden ticket out of their impoverished existence. They preened and boasted, their chests swelling with an almost arrogant pride. Every young man who dared to approach Rudo, his heart thrumming with hopeful affection, was met with scorn and ridicule. "Look at this one," her father would sneer, gesturing at a suitor's rough-skinned hands. "You think you can provide for my daughter? She deserves silk, not the rough touch of a hoe." Her mother, equally dismissive, would add, "Go back to your mud huts and dream of girls who look like you. My Rudo will marry a man of substance, a man who can give her the life she deserves." The local boys, their pride wounded and their hopes dashed, eventually gave up. Rudo, caught in the crossfire of her parents' ambition, watched them go with a quiet sadness. She yearned for a love born of genuine connection, not one forged in the fires of avarice. But her voice was small, drowned out by the clamor of her parents' dreams. Then came the day that changed everything. A sleek, black chariot, unlike anything the villagers had ever seen, rolled into Mabwe, its polished surface reflecting the stunned faces of the onlookers. From it emerged men dressed in fine linen, their bearing exuding an air of wealth and power that made the villagers shrink back in awe. They were emissaries of Chief Zambezi, a man whose name echoed through the region, synonymous with vast riches and ancient influence. Chief Zambezi, they announced, had seen Rudo during his travels and was captivated by her beauty. He sought her hand in marriage. Rudo's parents were ecstatic. Their wildest dreams were coming true. They danced and ululated, their initial caution replaced by an almost frantic eagerness. They didn't question the sudden interest of such a powerful man in their humble daughter. They didn't see the subtle flicker of unease in the eyes of some of the older villagers, whispers of strange occurrences surrounding the chief. All they saw was the promise of a life of luxury, a life far removed from the dust and hardship they had always known. Rudo, however, felt a cold dread creep into her heart. The men from the chariot were polite, but their eyes held a strange, unsettling intensity. There was a forced smile on their lips, a hollowness that sent shivers down her spine. She tried to voice her apprehension, to plead with her parents to be cautious, but her words were lost in their celebratory din. The marriage was arranged swiftly. Lavish gifts arrived at Rudo's home. Bolts of shimmering fabric, intricately carved jewelry, baskets overflowing with exotic fruits. Her parents were blinded by the opulence, their greed eclipsing any lingering doubts. Rudo was treated like a prized possession, her opinions disregarded, her fears dismissed. On the day of the wedding, Rudo felt like a lamb being led to slaughter. Draped in heavy silks and adorned with gold, she was a beautiful spectacle, but inside, her spirit was wilting. As she was escorted to the waiting chariot, she caught the eye of a young man, Tinashe, who had once dared to court her. His gaze was filled with a sorrowful understanding, a silent apology for not fighting harder for her. A pang of regret pierced through Rudo's fear. The journey to Chief Zambezi's sprawling compound was long and arduous. The landscape transformed from familiar scrubland to manicured gardens and imposing walls. When they finally arrived, Rudo was led through a maze of courtyards and opulent chambers, each more extravagant than the last. But the beauty felt cold, sterile, lacking the warmth of her village. She was presented to Chief Zambezi, a man old enough to be her grandfather. His eyes, though still sharp, held a weariness that belied his wealth. He offered a polite smile, but it didn't reach his eyes. He spoke of his admiration for her beauty, his voice smooth but devoid of genuine emotion. The first few weeks were a blur of isolation. Rudo was confined to a luxurious wing of the compound, attended to by silent servants who moved like shadows. Chief Zambezi was often absent, consumed by his duties. When he was present, he was courteous but distant, treating her more like a beautiful object than a wife. Slowly, fragments of unsettling truths began to emerge. Whispers from the servants, hushed conversations overheard in the corridors, glimpses of strange rituals performed under the pale moonlight. Rudo learned that Chief Zambezi had taken a new wife every year for as long as anyone could remember. Each woman was celebrated for her beauty, showered with riches, and then faded away. No one spoke of what happened to them, but the silence was heavy with unspoken dread. Fear turned into a gnawing terror. Rudo realized she was not a cherished bride, but a pawn in some dark, unfathomable game. The wealth that had so enticed her parents was built on a foundation of cruelty and sacrifice. The realization was a bitter pill, a crushing weight of guilt and despair. She had been so naive, so blinded by the allure of a better life. One night, unable to bear the suffocating fear any longer, Rudo decided to explore. Under the cloak of darkness, she slipped out of her chambers, her heart pounding in her chest. The compound was eerily silent, the only sounds the rustling of leaves in the night breeze and the distant chanting from a hidden part of the grounds. Following the sound of the chanting, Rudo found herself near an ancient grove of trees, their branches twisted and gnarled like skeletal fingers. A flickering fire cast long, dancing shadows, revealing a circle of figures clad in dark robes. In the center stood Chief Zambezi, his face illuminated by the firelight, chanting in a language Rudo didn't understand. Her blood ran cold as she watched the ritual unfold. It was a dark, primal ceremony, filled with an energy that felt ancient and malevolent. She saw an object placed on a stone altar, a crudely fashioned doll bearing a striking resemblance to her. A wave of nausea washed over her as the horrifying truth dawned. Chief Zambezi's charm, his power, his very life force was tied to these rituals. He needed a young, vibrant woman each year to transfer her life energy, her beauty, into these effigies, ensuring his continued vitality. The previous wives hadn't just faded away, they had been drained, their essence stolen to prolong his unnatural existence. Rudo was the next sacrifice. The realization was a jolt, a brutal awakening. The fear that had paralyzed her now transformed into a burning rage. She would not be another victim. She would not let her beauty be her undoing. She would escape. The following days were a whirlwind of desperate planning. Rudo observed the routines of the guards, the layout of the compound, the rhythms of the household. She knew she couldn't rely on anyone within the walls. The servants were either complicit or too afraid to help. Her only hope lay in reaching the outside world. She remembered Tinashe, his sorrowful gaze on her wedding day. He was her only connection to her past life, to a world where beauty was appreciated, not exploited. Under the guise of needing fresh air, she began spending time in the gardens, hoping to catch the attention of someone from the nearby village. One afternoon, she saw him. Tinashe was working in the fields bordering the compound, his brow furrowed in concentration. Rudo's heart leaped. She found a loose stone near the wall and, when the guards weren't looking, scratched a message onto it. A plea for help, the location of the hidden grove, the truth about Chief Zambezi. She threw the stone over the wall, her hands trembling. Days turned into agonizing weeks. Rudo lived in a state of constant tension, her every smile and gesture calculated to mask her desperation. She knew time was running out. The anniversary of Chief Zambezi's previous wife was fast approaching, the day when the ritual would likely be performed again. Then, one moonless night, a small, smooth stone landed near her feet in the garden. It was Tinashe's reply. He would help her. The escape was fraught with danger. Tinashe, with the help of a few trusted villagers who had long suspected Chief Zambezi's dark secrets, created a diversion on the other side of the compound. While the guards were distracted, Rudo slipped out of her chambers and met Tinashe at the prearranged spot near the stables. The journey back to Mabwe was arduous and perilous. They traveled under the cover of darkness, avoiding the main roads, their fear spurring them onward. Rudo, who had grown accustomed to a life of ease, found a strength she never knew she possessed. Tinashe was her protector, his quiet determination, a constant source of reassurance. When they finally reached Mabwe, the villagers were shocked to see Rudo, gaunt and weary, but alive. Her parents, initially overjoyed, were soon confronted with the horrifying truth of their greed. The shame was a heavy cloak, their boasting replaced by a stunned silence. Rudo, however, found solace in the familiar rhythms of her village, in the honest faces of the people she had once taken for granted. The experience had stripped away her naivety, leaving behind a hard-won wisdom. Her beauty, once a source of pride and then a tool of exploitation, now felt like a fragile gift, something to be cherished, not traded. But the escape was not the end. Chief Zambezi's power reached far beyond his compound walls. He would not let his intended sacrifice slip away. Soon, whispers of his men searching for Rudo reached Mabwe, casting a shadow of fear over the village. Rudo knew she couldn't stay and endanger her community. She had to confront Chief Zambezi, not just for herself, but for all the women who had suffered his cruelty. With Tinashe by her side, and a small group of brave villagers willing to fight for justice, Rudo devised a plan. They would use her beauty as bait, luring Chief Zambezi into a trap. The confrontation took place in the ancient grove, the site of the dark rituals. Rudo, dressed in simple clothes, stood defiantly before Chief Zambezi and his men. Her beauty was undeniable, but now it was imbued with a fierce strength, a quiet determination that made him pause. Rudo spoke, her voice clear and strong, telling the villagers who had followed Chief Zambezi the truth of his vile practices. She spoke of the stolen lives, the drained essence, the cruelty masked by wealth and power. Her words, raw with emotion and truth, began to sow seeds of doubt among his followers. Chief Zambezi, enraged by her defiance, lunged towards her, his eyes burning with a desperate fury. But Tinashe and the villagers were ready. A fierce battle ensued, the air filled with the clash of weapons and the cries of men. In the end, Chief Zambezi, weakened by the disruption of his ritual and the loss of his followers' faith, was defeated. He was not killed, but stripped of his power and his reputation, left to face the consequences of his greed and cruelty. Rudo, standing amidst the aftermath of the battle, felt a profound sense of relief. She had faced her fear and emerged stronger. Her beauty had not defined her. Her courage had. The road to redemption was long and arduous. Rudo had to heal from the trauma, to reconcile with her parents, to find her place in a world that had almost consumed her. She worked alongside the villagers, her hands now calloused, but her spirit free. She learned the value of hard work, the strength of community, the true meaning of love. Her parents, humbled and remorseful, dedicated themselves to making amends. They used the gifts Chief Zambezi had given them to help the village, building a well and a small clinic. They finally understood that true wealth lay not in material possessions, but in the bonds of family and community. Rudo and Tinashe's bond deepened, forged in the fires of shared adversity. Their love was not based on fleeting beauty or material gain, but on mutual respect, courage, and a shared vision for a better future. Rudo's story became a legend in itself, a cautionary tale whispered around the village fires. It was a story of beauty exploited, of greed's insidious grip, of the courage to escape, and the arduous but ultimately rewarding path to redemption. It was a reminder that true beauty lies not in outward appearance, but in the strength of one's spirit and the kindness of one's heart, and that sometimes the greatest treasures are found not in palaces, but in the simple connections of human love and community. If you like this story, watch this next video. Like and subscribe to this page for more.